Today, I'm going to focus on some of the ways that I try to change behavior in order to improve like how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, and to just in general like reach my goals, as well as to live in a way that feels congruent with my identity, and also like constructive for my well-being. So I wanted to start with that because I think that sometimes when we think of behavior, we're like, what is she talking about? And for behavior, I mean like any actions that we take. This can also be like habits or systems of kind of going through our life. So I wanted to acknowledge that when we're going through depression, anxiety, or another uh, mental health or medical condition, it can absolutely impact our behavior. So sometimes it's a little difficult to tackle behavior change, and we might need some support, including professional help. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, or even medication. Sometimes medication can be helpful in changing behavior. But today I'm really going to focus on the things that maybe are like missed opportunities for behavior change. And the first one for me is practicing coping skills that we can do in like tiny little bits. Because a lot of times in therapy, I think when people want to practice a coping skill, it's like, well, when am I going to find the time for this, right? Or if you hear someone talking about meditation, they're like, I get up an hour early to meditate and journal. That just might not fit into your life, and that's okay. Um, so I wanted to talk about ways that we can kind of like make tiny little changes, and they might help with shifting thoughts, shifting mood. So the first one is deep breathing. And I put this here because I found that even just a minute of paying attention to my breath, seeing if it's deep, seeing if it's tight in any areas, and just allowing myself to deepen that breath a little bit and focus on having a nice long exhale, even just a minute or less, and I can feel a difference in my stress. So, I don't know, it's a small little piece, right? And this is what I mean by a small behavior. So even just having that practice for a minute. I also have here this question of where are my feet? So this is a mindfulness skill basically of saying, where am I right now? Where am I in this present moment? Where are my feet? Right? And the idea being that I am shifting my attention to this present moment, and just checking in on what's actually happening. Because sometimes our thoughts will take us way away from where we are, right? We're thinking about the past, we're thinking about the future. So just taking a moment to look, literally, I'll look down. Where are my feet? Take a look around me, check in with my body. Um, yeah, maybe some people would say that's not a behavior coping skill, but whatever. Okay, another one is just literally 5 minutes of movement. This could be walking, it could be stretching, it could be lifting weights. And I say 5 minutes because sometimes we think, oh, in order to exercise, I need to have 30 minutes or I need to have an hour. But I found that a tiny little positive change is far better than no change, and they tend to accumulate, right? So on a busy workday, I might only have 5 minutes to walk around the block. But I will go outside, I will walk around the block really quick, or I'll do 5 minutes of stretching. And I do tend to feel much better than if I had not done it at all. Because I think sometimes we have this mindset that I have to like go big or go home. Not the case. I think that it can be very powerful to just do a little tiny shift, right? Because these things add up. If I walk for 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the afternoon, and then maybe 5 minutes when I get off of work at the end of the day, that's 15 more minutes than I would have never had that if I was just like, oh, I don't have a half an hour. So you see what I mean? Sometimes the all or nothing thinking gets in the way of us having healthy behavior. And then another thing too is even like with journaling, some people say, oh, I don't have time to journal. There are one sentence journals, literally one sentence. That's it. And even something like listening to relaxing music, just listening to like one single track. And just that tiny little action of a little bit of practiced relaxation can have a benefit, in my opinion, right? I also wanted to share like the other reason why I like these tiny pieces. And that's because I have this mindset that if I do it for a minute and I don't like it or I don't want to continue, I can stop. But a lot of the times when I do something that is a constructive behavior, whether that's folding laundry or, getting that little bit of exercise, or maybe it's, I mean, it really could be anything, right? It could be organizing like a little portion of my, living environment. If I do it for a minute and I want to continue, often, yeah, I do want to continue, right? Because once I've started the action, it's self-sustaining a little bit, right? You start doing it and you go, oh, this is not so bad, right? Like it's like doing the dishes. When the dishes pile up, if you think to yourself, well, I have to do all of these dishes, a lot of times it's like, nope, I don't have the energy to do all those dishes. But if I say to myself, well, I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute or 5 minutes, and I'm just going to do as much as I can, often by the time that timer goes off, I'm like, oh, well, I could do another 5 minutes, right? Or I could do another minute. And that's because we call this behavior activation when we do a positive behavior because in order to get like more motivation and more positive behavior. Um, I know it sounds kind of silly. It's like we're, energizing ourselves by practicing the thing we want to do. And it can be very powerful, which is why I really like the hack of just doing something for a little bit of time, setting that timer and being kind of all in on it. And a lot of times when that timer goes off, there is a little bit more motivation there or a little bit of an ability to go, oh, well, I did accomplish something. Because it's amazing how much we can do in 5 minutes, honestly. Um, I really like the cleaning hack of setting a timer for 5 minutes and just doing whatever I can in 5 minutes and focusing on just doing what I can. And sometimes it's better than nothing. So I have written down to the 80-20 rule, which is this idea that sometimes we can get 80% of the benefit for 20% of the effort. And I don't know, how universal this is, but I do think that, for example, like taking, 5 minutes to try to meditate or taking, 5 minutes to lift some weights, um, you know, it it's much better than not doing it at all. And a lot of times we do actually get benefit from these tiny little actions. At least in my experience, it can really build on itself. There's also this phrase that can be helpful, I think, when we're trying to practice more constructive behavior. And to me, I like to say it's done is better than perfect. Now, you probably wouldn't want your surgeon to say this, but it is true. You wouldn't want a surgeon operating on you for like 12 hours to get a perfect result because there would be harm caused by them operating on you for, longer than was absolutely necessary, right? So I think there is a balance here between perfectionism and like getting it doneness. But I would say that a lot of times this perfectionism mindset, I guess this is we're moving into the thoughts realm here. It really does interfere with us changing our behaviors. So for example, if someone tells me like, I want to write a book, but first I need to like, buy all these books on writing a book and I need to, buy some fancy pens and buy whatever, and I just can't do that right now. Or, I wrote a sentence and it's just not good enough. I need to just edit this one sentence. I would say, okay, remember, done is better than perfect. See if you can write a really bad first draft. And there's a lot of professional writers who give this advice. They say, write a bad first draft. Write it. Because you know what you can't edit? You cannot edit nothing, right? So the idea being just practice getting it out, getting it done. Whatever this action is that's really important to you, practice doing it badly if you need to, right? As long as it's safe to do so. Anyhow, of course, like use your discretion here. But for things like knitting, if we're trying to start off by knitting a perfect blanket, that might not be realistic, right? But if we start off trying to knit like a small little one, like a what's it called? It's like a pot holder, and that might be a little bit more manageable. And if you make mistakes, you might be like, well, this is my learning pot holder. This is my practice pot holder. I'm going to give it to someone who loves me and won't care that there's a bunch of mistakes in it. Um, so yeah, I think sometimes there's a little back and forth here, right? Like the more positive or encouraging our thoughts are, the more likely we are to take that step to practice that behavior. But there's something to be said for going through the motions, or just, we also call this like acting as if, um, or I like to think of it too as like chop wood, carry water. So the idea being that sometimes we have to go through the motions a lot with a positive behavior or a constructive behavior in order for us to notice a difference in the feelings, emotions, and thoughts. So I'll give you an example here. Let's say, maybe like I'll give an example for me, right? I know if my mood is really low, which, might happen, right? I'm a human being. If my mood is really low, I'm going to really lean into these behaviors, right? I'm going to practice good sleep hygiene. I'm going to, make sure that I'm going to bed on time and getting up on time. And whether or not I sleep, I can't control that, right? But I'm going to try to control those other conditions. I'm going to try to increase, my physical exercise or maintain it, whatever the case might be, because I know that there's a lot of research that supports cardio and weightlifting for, brain health, basically. And then also behaviors like I'm going to reach out to friends that I feel safe talking to or family members that are supportive. Um, I might also try to, be gentle with myself in terms of what I'm taking on and what I'm letting go of. So I might set, for things that are like more complex or more challenging tasks, I might set those aside, but then I might still focus on, let's say, cleaning for 5 minutes or, um, going to the grocery store and picking out food that is, both nutritious to me and also that I like to eat because I'm not going to punish myself or like try to make myself into someone I'm not. Um, I think it's really important to consider like our identity and our values when we're looking at behavior change, because if it's not in alignment, then it probably won't work, right? When I think about habits that I want to focus on developing, I really like to think about, what is it in my identity that is tied up in this behavior? And sometimes too, that's the answer behind why we're stuck with a behavior is there's like something that we're getting out of it. And it might be something that we're not even aware of, right? Sometimes we're like it's in the unconscious why we continue to act a certain way. But therapy can be a really good way too. If we're feeling, if a behavior is really hard to change, I really encourage people to get professional help with it. There's no shame in needing support with behavior. But those are some of my favorite hacks. Because, honestly, the more we practice small little behavior change, a lot of times the more we get motivation just from taking some kind of action. And we also can get a better sense of like competency and confidence just from like seeing ourselves follow through little by little. And sometimes we need to have reminders. So, like using sticky notes or notifications on our phone for the behavior we want to practice. Or we might need to like habit stack, which is you take a behavior that you already do consistently and then you pair it. So let's say you wanted to start doing deep breathing every night. If you brush your teeth every night, what you would do is maybe put a little reminder next to your toothbrush. And then when you're brushing your teeth, you look at that reminder. And as soon as you're done brushing your teeth, you do those 5 breaths. And then you do the next thing that you normally do to get ready for bed. And then another option too is to incentivize yourself. So if there's a behavior that's very important to you, um, then I encourage you to look at like successful rewards, and these can be little small things, right? Like just I don't know, maybe there's a fidget you really want to get or something that brings you joy, or it could be playing like your favorite music and dancing to it, or it could be really anything, right? Hopefully something that's healthy or constructive for yourself. And then pair that with meeting your goal around your desired behavior change. Some people like consequences to motivate themselves for behavior change. I just think it's important that we, be kind to ourselves. Some of the good consequences that I've heard are like donating to a charity that you hate. So like if you're, a vegetarian, you would donate to, I have no idea if this even exists, but like a meat eating organization, if you didn't meet your goal for your behavior change. But I personally prefer rewards because I think it's good to be kind to ourselves. And also, there are motivation apps that you can Google. There's ways to gamify behavior change. And there's also some books like the Atomic Habit um, book. So I hope some of this was helpful for you. If you have any thoughts about it, feel free to leave a comment. If you liked it, please share it, like or subscribe. Thank you.